I recently visited China, learned a lot of travel tips, celebrated my grandfather's 89th birthday, didn't get lost because I had a Chinese friend to navigate things for me. And, I'm going to help you out by giving you some tips so that you don't get lost. You need to pay attention to a few things. First, China censors Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Google, YouTube, a lot of things. And so if you want to be able to use those applications, you need to have a VPN. The VPN allows you to bypass China's Great Firewall so that you can view any websites you want. Some of the most common ones back in the day were ExpressVPN and NordVPN, but currently, as of July 2023, they do not work reliably. So instead, I suggest either using Let's VPN or Astral VPN. There's actually a Reddit post here. So best VPN for China, those which actually work, Astral VPN and Let's VPN are the current winners. But you probably want to go into Reddit and type in VPNs that work in China, Reddit, and then just honestly look through a recent post. So this is from March 3rd, 2023, and this is for May 13th, 2023. So you need to look up a recent post so that you know what recently works, because China is always updating their firewall system, and that means you need to update the VPN that actually works. I personally used Connect VPN through my cousin's school, so that worked for me. I would highly suggest downloading the VPN before heading to China, so that way you have access to it, because while you're in China, you might not be able to download the VPN. Another issue I had was paying for things. So you would think that everywhere accepts cash, renminbi, for you to pay for things. But no, sometimes people only accept WeChat or Alipay. Alipay is relatively easy to download and use with a foreign US credit card, but WeChat Pay does not. So if you're trying to pay for things in China, I suggest trying to use cash or Alipay. Sometimes Visa works, sometimes Discover works, but Alipay and cash are the most reliable ways, and sometimes it's only electronic. So if you need to make an electronic payment, you can use data. You can watch my tutorial on getting data internationally here. But if you need to use WeChat, you need to either have a Chinese friend that'll let you borrow their debit card, or get a relative card from someone Chinese so that they can give it to you and you can use the card, because it's really annoying. And if you are using a VPN, make sure to turn it off while you are using WeChat or any other Chinese apps, and then turn it back on when you're trying to use US websites. In terms of transportation, different cities have different applications for public transport. If you go to Qingdao, you need a Qingdao app. So Qingdao had a decent public transportation system, easy to navigate. From what I recall, my Chinese cousin made an account for me using her credentials so that I could actually pay and use the Qingdao railway system, so I can just scan and then go directly in without having to worry about buying individual tickets. But she couldn't use the app at the same time I was using the app because we were using the same account. So once I logged in, it logged her out. And when she logged in, it logged me out. That was actually inconvenient, but luckily we had another friend in Qingdao who could give us their account so that I could use it, and then she could use her own account, and so that way we could enter as necessary into the Qingdao railway system without having to buy individual tickets. So this is one example of many, many examples of how inconvenient it is without a Chinese identity card and Chinese debit card to use the payment systems built in China, because they are built for Chinese residents, not for foreigners. But you can always buy individual tickets, which is annoying. And if you need to navigate, I suggest using Apple Maps, because Google Maps is censored. Moreover, if you look in the description below, you can scroll down to the bailey.substack.com link and see the Chinese apps. So there's WeChat.com, essential in China. Then there's Didi, which is located inside the WeChat app. And then there's some other apps here, Alipay, traveling app, navigation app, although you can use Apple Maps. It's probably better to use Apple Maps if you are English oriented. And honestly, it's pretty good. Even other Chinese residents used Apple Maps. And then this is for events, and then this is the Qingdao Metro. If you are visiting China, you need to download WeChat. If you scroll down, you can see the mini programs. So you can see traveling applications. So this dolphin thing is a traveling application to buy plane tickets, bus tickets, and so on. This is like Yelp, where you can find places to eat, hotels to stay at, drinks, and so on. China Customs, so you can fill out the health declaration. There's Chinese Uber called DD, where you can navigate to where you want to go. And then you can download these other applications outside of WeChat as well if you want. Moreover, if you are a US citizen, you need a tourist visa. So this is the China Visa Service Center. For this tourist visa, it's valid for 10 years and you can go to China for 60 days every single time over that 10-year period. And if you look at the fees, it's $185 and it takes about 8 business days. Now, if you're trying to communicate in China, you need to use WeChat over Wi-Fi or data. Make sure to turn off your VPN. You can also download the offline dictionary on Google Translate so that you can take pictures and see the English text of the Chinese stuff. You can also use Microsoft Translator if you want to do it over Wi-Fi. That way, you don't have to worry about turning off and on your VPN when you use Google Translate or not. I like Google Translate because it works offline and all I have to do is turn off and on my VPN or turn off my data. Because if you turn off your data, there's no firewall because there's no Wi-Fi you're connected to. Bing.com also works in China, so you can't use Google, but you can use Bing.com. You can also use Baidu.com, but it's mostly in Chinese, so if you can't read Chinese, Bing.com is better for English users. So those are my tips for visiting China. Get a VPN, Alipay or WeChat, download the different transportation systems, different for each city, but DD is the equivalent of the Chinese Uber. So if you look up the DD app, you can use that, Uber your way through different locations. However, the app is mostly in Chinese, so you can try to figure it out, but it is relatively simple to use even if you don't speak Chinese, once you get the hang of it anyway. US citizens require a tourist visa, so click the link. And then communicating over WeChat is a necessity because everyone in China uses WeChat. And if you need Google, well, you can download the offline app. You can also use Microsoft Translator and Bing.com. I'll talk about other trips to Asia and more tips later, but you can see my trip to Japan here for some travel tips. And this is just a little extra, but if you type in Visa exchange rate, you can say you spent 100 yuan, which is the Chinese renminbi, and then you want US dollar, the bank fee. Hopefully you don't have a card with fees, but then if you calculate the conversion, 100 renminbi or CNY equals $13.93 or 94 cents USD. So that's just an exchange rate calculator, an extra tidbit of information if you want it. Let me just say though, visiting China without knowing any Chinese or not having a native Chinese relative or friend with you is kind of hard, especially when you need to make payments. So hopefully you have a Chinese friend. If not, hopefully this tutorial helps. It's a great place to visit, but it might be very inconvenient for a lot of foreigners. You might want to just head to Taiwan or Hong Kong. It's easier to pay for things and there's no firewall that censors things. But if you can, visit China too. You probably could go with a tour group and you can likely navigate through things. I'm just saying, if I didn't have my Chinese cousin helping me out, I would have been lost on many, many occasions. But I have some tips to help you out. Hopefully you have a great time in China. Let me know any other tips by commenting below. And thanks for watching. This is Bailey Zong, That Money Guy. Have a wonderful day.